Did you know that post-secondary youth with disabilities have a harder time getting a job than their peers? Let's help break down the barriers by taking the Youth Leadership Initiative survey at disabilityfoundation.org/YLI before July 14th.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Discover Stories on Reimagine Radio. My name is Braden Vino, and I'm the program assistant with the Vancouver Adapted Music Society. Today, I'll be talking to E.J. Tremblay, new member of the Board of Directors for the Vancouver Adapted Music Society. Hi, E.J. Thank you for joining me.
My pleasure, Braden. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, let's just get right into it. What is it about the Disability Foundation and the affiliated societies that made you interested in joining the board?
Well, obviously it was my own circumstances of losing my vision. Mm-hmm. And then when I sort of had to reinvent myself because I was a visual artist, and I went to Royal Roads University to do my master's degree. And I really took a keen interest in accessibility, technology, inclusiveness. And I was very dissatisfied with it actually at school. And then, so I guess that forced me into becoming somewhat of an accidental advocate. And just through my research, you talk to one person, they introduce you to two. And actually it was in one of my courses, change management, that I was denied accessibility. And so when I complained about it the next day, I also said, well, I want to speak to that person. That was the guest speaker, and that was Ruby. And so I had a conversation, and she said, by the way, I'm the, director of all these, of the Disability Foundation, which includes all these things. And I said, really? And, I just started checking out one website after the other. And being originally from the East Coast, there's not such a variety of services for persons with disabilities like there is out there. And, it was like a kid in a candy store almost. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't aware of it at first. And then Ruby asked me if I'd join a couple of the boards. And it was kind of a no-brainer. So I forget what the question was.
Just what brought you, what made you interested. So totally, that answers it. Yeah. You mentioned your previous passion in visual arts. So what was it about this form of expression that was so important to you? And how did you start pursuing that as a career?
Well, I guess it started as a child. I always liked art. My grandmother was an artist. My mother was a teacher, which a lot of that encompassed art and music and everything like that. So I guess it was natural. I just thought that was a part of life. And I actually stopped pursuing that probably later in high school and university to play competitive sports. And I had my fun with that. And when that ended, I had to, pick a career, and I had worked in videography, making snowboard videos, commercials. So I just I fell into that. And then I kind of like the filmmaking aspect of it. So I kind of segued from snowboarding into filmmaking, and filmmaking into, teaching filmmaking and photography. And I wouldn't really say I chose it as much as it chose me, but that was sort of the natural evolution.
Cool. Yeah. And that took you around the world, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a few places. So, you're exposed to a lot of different cultures. Maybe I'm just curious, considering your experience, what are your thoughts on the portrayal of disability in film and TV?
Well, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
I'll chat about it with you, but I'll kind of, this is my waiver here in that I don't have a firm stance on it, right? I know in acting there was a fuss about parts that the character was disabled played by actors that were not disabled or did not have experienced that particular disability. So I don't know. I mean, I guess the whole concept of acting is playing something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you think of Anthony Hopkins, they call him, not Lord, but what do they call him? Sir Anthony Hopkins, and he's knighted by the thing. So I'm sure he's a great guy. But then, Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah.
If you're too young to remember that, but it's pretty much the most sinister character ever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I don't know. I don't want to get backlash.
No, I totally understand.
My opinion. And I'm just kind of making it up as I speak, but so wouldn't it have been better to get sort of a psychopath cannibal to play that?
No, you make a good point. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. But again, I don't want this to be like, I don't have a hard stance on it.
Right.
But I'm glad that there's an awareness of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I'm glad, there's things like VAMS, which is, I guess, not filmmaking, but art and media
mm-hmm. and
music. So there needs to be more, but I think there's being steps made in the right direction.
Yeah. I mean, the kind of connection to VAMS you make, it's more about, providing the resources to have the same opportunities. It's not like we're making different music than everyone else.
Right.
It's, we're still doing the same art form. So, no, that's a really great point. Yeah. Would you say maybe your perspective has changed then since
absolutely.
Yeah.
And my process has. So I thought I was done with filmmaking and photography,
mm-hmm.
but with my vision being altered,
mm-hmm.
Photography has basically become my not only my medium for art, but in terms of navigation.
Mm.
So I normally live in Victoria in the winters. I came back to New Brunswick because of the pandemic. My mother was here. But navigating my way around Victoria, I just, click a picture of the intersection at the, the sign, and then up the contrast, zoom it, and that's where I am. And a lot of those things will be, kind of serendipitous or by accident. There just happened to be a seagull landing on that stop sign.
Yeah.
And, well, you know what? I think I'll, go to the dark room and have someone print that for me, black and white. So it's become a source of photography has become a source of expression, navigation, communication, and education for me. Right? Like mm-hmm. I take a lot more pictures now, and then I'll, at night when I'm just, winding down, I'll go through my phone and go, I'll see things in the setting that I took a picture of that I had no idea that they were there. Right.
Right.
No cool Sasquatches, but there's an interesting busker playing a zither. I've never seen that before, and I didn't see it then.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know if I answered whatever your question.
No, totally. Yeah. Yeah. You got the equivalent of a Bob Ross happy accident. Yeah. It's yeah.
There you go.
In photograph form. Yeah.
You know what? On this, I sort of go on a tangent, but I think there's room now for Bob Ross cover artist to go around to all the theaters and the town.
No,
do pretend he's Bob Ross, right?
That'd be
I'd pay $20 to go see that.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah, that's
okay.
Usually how I wind down at night. I know. Yeah. So you kind of talked about your process in kind of changing the means in which you kind of express yourself through arts. What was the pivot for career?
What was pardon me?
Your pivot for career. So you obviously had to change, right?
Well, it's a work in progress, I guess.
Right.
So, this was about maybe 10 to 15 years ago that I really started noticing that I couldn't drive and I couldn't, mm-hmm. read things in front of me. And I sort of panicked and didn't have a clue what I was going to do. And I thought, a big part of whatever I choose to do as a vacation will have to, it'll have to be something that I can either assure my way to get there, because like getting to and from work as a visually impaired or blind person is, it's challenging, right? Challenging not only in how you're going to do it physically, but, so say on a bus, it's emotionally heightened, I guess, because, you're not as clear what's going on around you as most people.
Right.
Or find a job where I could, work with computers or telecommunication and stay at home. And I found a friend of mine who had gone to high school and played hockey with years ago was an executive coach. And I said, what is that? And he's like, well, I help executives and leaders, manage their time, set goals, motivation, that sort of thing. And coming from film, where I was mostly a director and a teacher, the principles of directing actors were like very similar to this form of coaching, where it didn't say, like, it was not, Bryden, I need you to be happier. You don't know what that means. So you're going to be, I don't know what that means, but like, Bryden, what makes you happy? Right? Or what can you conjure? Bryden, I can't wait to see what you're going to do. I can't see,
Yeah.
So I give you the confidence. And that was sort of the same way I teach, in the same way, like these new principles of coaching is where it's sort of client-centered, where, Socrates said all the answers come from within, and through powerful questioning, you can figure it out on your own. So I got into executive coaching, and that was through Royal Roads, and I really liked the academic side of it. And they said, well, you can, throw these eggs in a basket and do your Master's of Interdisciplinary Studies. So I said, sure. And that's where I am right now, I guess.
Nice. Yeah. And it's kind of interesting that you say the directing actors translates so well, but also you did some acting too, right?
Yeah.
So having
I
that
was
insight.
Good, the guy that would go, Bryden, we were expecting you right this way.
Yeah.
And that would be my part on the big TV shows, but they gave me a little bit more to say on student films and independent stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so actually, this is kind of a new question I have. After talking to some other people in this sector of disability, be it Sam Sullivan and Maureen Delandreville, they have some really interesting takes on how they coped with disability when they acquired it. So, like, for example, Maureen actually finds it to be something that made her a better person overall. Sam Sullivan, Sam said that, he was at such a low that there was nowhere else to go but up.
Rock bottom, wow.
Yeah, so maybe what were some of like those feelings, and that you mentioned like that panic feeling. How did you get through that time of your life?
Yeah, well, I like both in terms of what Sam said, at such a low point, it can't get any worse. And Maureen, making her a better person. And I can relate to both of them. So, I guess when my vision was failing, and, I was seeing specialists in Boston and Halifax, and even at UBC, I saw the specialists, and they were still unclear what it was, but they definitely knew it was failing, and they knew it was myoptic nerve. And so I guess the fear of the unknown was, could be looked at as scarier, or that it suspended my grief, because I thought if they figured it out, they could fix it. So that kind of added it staved off a level of grief, and I kind of entered denial even before I knew what was going on.
Right.
And then, sort of once I figured it out, and was spending my savings, and, everything I sort of knew how to do was like, that wasn't an option anymore. To work on a film set was, I understand I would be a liability and that sort of thing. So yeah, I guess I did panic, and it was some like low times, and but what I guess it came to the point where feeling sorry for myself was like, it just wasn't an option, and I kind of regretted that I did, like, not that I felt sorry for myself to start with, but I kind of stayed in that stage for a week or two longer than I did, and quite frankly, it just got old for me.
Right.
It gets old like very, very fast. And if I was going to play, and I did think, well, I'm just going to, sit on the couch and, knit.
Yeah.
and my ignorance, and as I face a lot of I think, ableism and stuff. And however, I have to show a level of tolerance because, 15 years ago, I was in the same boat. When you heard the word blind, you assume that a person didn't have any light coming in at all. And,
right.
And sort of, while this was happening to me, I was thinking, well, geez, worst stigma of all, right? Even like from the beginning of time to the Bible to,
Yeah.
I was blind. And even now in common speak, they say things like, oh, blind spot says it in a figurative thing, or the person was going into it blind. So using the word blind is like it, it gives the sense that it's coming from a sense of deficit.
Right.
And to a person who is blind, it's like, am I at a deficit? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah.
So I guess it's just a work in progress, and I can't say that like I've come through it yet, right? In terms of dealing with it, right? And so I think I kind of weave through the stages of grief, and I wouldn't say I try to keep a positive attitude. I just that's just the way I am.
You just
like,
do. Yeah.
I just have a kind of a hard time to be cynical.
Right. Yeah.
Unless it's my job to, write an article or to say, hey, EJ, do you like this song? Like, I can be critical in that sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like, not to toot my own horn, but finding my way into executive coaching from directing where I can kind of apply the same principles. So I think I had a good ability to, maybe to be a bit of an optimist or to, find the silver lining.
Yeah, totally. Through your time learning to be an executive coach, you probably thought a lot about accessibility and how able-bodied people perceive it versus how a person with a disability might perceive it. What maybe advice would you have to able-bodied people to kind of educate themselves on accessibility, or like how to change the perspective?
Absolutely. That's a good, that's a great question, Brad.
Thank you. Yeah.
Because I do tell people that, and Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone because his wife had meningitis and lost hearing. And so rather than have to yell at his deaf wife, he developed this, telephone type device, not thinking it would, transcend the world and become like,
become a little glass thing in your pocket. Yeah.
And then Edison invented the gramophone so blind people could read books, right? And, the remote control was developed for wounded soldiers so they could amuse themselves while they were recovering. So, hands-free, so like Siri or Bluetooth or that sort of thing came out of design for people with disabilities and got transposed into the regular world just for like ease of use,
right.
The clapper.
Yeah. The clapper. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I would tell, like, people with disabilities are ultimately bound, to people, the quote unquote abled, but they would be surprised that like how much technology that they're using was originally designed for persons with disabilities. And so just because something is branded as a assistive technology or accessibility technology for blind, deaf, whatever, it doesn't mean that there's not like super practical uses
Totally.
For able people. And I often wonder about vision loss with people that like getting older, like age-related macular degeneration, or just, my parents, like upping their glasses prescription, almost 3 times a year. And I'm like, Mom, like, have you ever seen this CAN-FB reader?
Yeah.
What is it, right? And there's a lot of things that I just, I'll tell my friends that have a hard time accessing things or reading things. I'll loan them my technology, and they're like, oh, why did I never hear of that? So,
wow.
All you sighted people.
I love that point. I mean, at the end of the day, all the technology that we use is assistive, really. Just some people might need other types of technologies, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Right? And you'd be surprised. And another thing I'd like to say on that is people don't have disabilities. People experience disabilities.
Right.
So what we label as a person without a disability at some point is going to break their arm, break their leg, get COVID-19, become depressed, like at some point. So we'll experience a disability, right? And so I think the perception that able people have about not necessarily assistive technology, well, that would incorporate assistive technology, like let's say a crutch, or a leg brace. And that maybe should be all looped into the same category as assistive technology, so that able people would, see it the same as disabilities and experience, and not a label, or not a brand that people have to wear. And on what Maureen said is making her a better person. And so in a lot of ways, I've, gained huge insight and perspective on human nature that I never would have if I hadn't experienced vision loss.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, all amazing points. That last point you made, that I hadn't thought about it that way before. So thank you for sharing that. That was awesome. Thanks for listening to this episode of Discover Stories on Reimagine Radio. Tune in next week for more.